Hey guys, welcome back to AFK Journey. In today's video, I wanted to talk about Skyclops. Now, in this one, we're going to take a look at a couple resources for the whale slash endgame type player if you are there and you've got some really good heroes built up. But then I also want to jump into my accounts and show you guys the work through for this boss as you're progressing through the game, because it's not just a standard, this is the best team while progressing. As soon as you get into a different difficulty, it then changes. Maybe another team is better because you're trying to get to 10%. Maybe you're trying to get to 20% damage. So that's what I really want to walk through here and talk about the difference in this boss between what the end game is, where there is sort of a set meta, compared to progression where you've just kind of got to try and make it work essentially. So first of all, let's jump over. I want to show you guys a few resources that we can use to get to get info about the more later game style of thing. Now we have Pridewin here. Pridewin is a great site for everything as well. They have their different boss guides here. And then we also have this one here, which is actually a, what does Google translate? A Ukrainian website, which is absolutely fantastic. I found out about it through Season, who runs Analytica, and they are going to update all their guides here as well. So these are two very end game focused websites, this one and this one. I'll leave links to all of these in the description. And as you can see here, we go through some very in-depth teams for the end game. But once again, this is more end game, and I feel like the majority of people aren't here. So if you are at this point, definitely go check out these resources. Now, when we go to Pridewin, they do give you a lot more options, free-to-play options and stuff like that. But what I want to do is jump over to my account and take a look and talk through some of the strategies. So let's jump back over here. So here we're on my alt account, which is like 3 days old or something like that, 2 or 3 days old. I can't even remember anymore. But this is what we are looking at. So I have just entered, if you look at where I'm at, I have just cleared the previous version of the boss, and now I'm into this one. And if you look at my rewards, I can only get the 10% rewards. I do really like Smokey for this, but if you don't have Smokey, then your next option for most free-to-play players is going to be Coco. Now, Coco in certain situations is actually going to be better depending on the way your team is formatted. But Coco is definitely fantastic, and if you can line it up so that her AI uses her ult before the Skyclops uses his ultimate. So basically, when we look at what the Skyclops has, he has his ultimate, which is a massive beam, which deals a ton of damage, and by like, depending on like what difficulty you're at, maybe the first one, maybe the second one, maybe the third one, very big wipe potential. So if you can have Coco's mitigation up for that, it can actually let you survive into another wave of it. Then he's got his two summons. He summons his different units, which give him different buffs essentially, and you've just got to kill the ads, is pretty much the way it is. So the fight goes, kill ads, and then we've got an ultimate that does a ton of damage. So sometimes you can get Coco and work it out. But also sometimes if you put Coco in the back row and use this one, it can actually help you in that it might change the timing. Now, it's not 100% guaranteed. It's one of those fights you've got to swap around. But this artifact, for those progressing through the game, can adjust the turn order of Coco, or the order of how quick she uses her ultimate, which can actually allow her to ult at different frequencies. So if you are using Coco, it is definitely something to consider. Now, at some stages, if we say you do have Smokey, sometimes Smokey can tank. However, once you get into harder difficulties, like you just clear a difficulty, like difficulties that you are almost clearing, sometimes Smokey can tank. Once you're into a new one, Smokey gets one shot, so it's not even worth it, and that's where I like to use Thorin. Now, if you don't have Thorin, you can use maybe a Brutus. Besides that, you're kind of out of luck. Maybe your Antandra, or you can hope your Smokey can go. But if we're looking at like a full free-to-play team, meaning you have no 5-star, you have no epic units, except for Cecilia, because everyone gets a guaranteed copy, then you're probably going to be looking at something around this formation. But like I said, ideally Thorin is great because he also debuffs, which is fantastic, and he gets the extra life, and often he can charge and deal AoE as well. But then this one is going to be Smokey, but like I said, sometimes you will want to use Coco. And now the other ones I use are Odie and Cecilia. Cecilia basically because most people have her at high ascension because you can get her from the shop, and that's why she is in here. Now in a lot of the late game teams, you will see things like Merrill Lee, and you will see things like Corin, Thorin. These two, Merrilee is just not as good as Odie in the early game, in my opinion. Later on, different story. But early on, I feel like Odie just does more damage at low investment than what Merrilee can actually dish out. So that's why I normally leave Odie and then I use Sacia. And what you want to play around with for damage is this artifact if you have it. If you have the flame artifact, you can also use that one as well. But for this one, you can test around. Like, for instance, in this stage, getting Odie's poison on is very valuable for me. So if I put Sacia in the back row, I just want to demonstrate this, and this is stuff that you guys can play around with. So if I put Sacia in the back row, what you'll see is the Skyclops often summons the ads before my Odie can ult, and Odie can waste his ult. So here comes the ads. There they are. And if you look at Odie, boom, uses the ult into one of the ads because you can see the boss's health is not ticking away. So in that case, it kind of sucks. And here is the perfect example of where Coco is fantastic. So, like I said, that is a situation in which you can waste an Odie ult into it, which kind of sucks. But like, it just depends on the situation. But that's just one of the RNG things that can happen. So as you can see here, we do have Coco's ult active, but unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to keep us all alive. We do actually get that ult out of the Sacia. If I can get 30%, I'd be pretty happy on this one. So there you go. So this is the first time I've tried this boss using Coco in this team because I had Smokey, but once there you saw that Coco actually was functioning better. That is a higher score for me, and Coco putting in a ton of work in that one, getting me 2 extra rewards. So it really depends. When I tried Coco on the previous difficulty, Coco wasn't as good as Smokey. But because this difficulty, I'm more prone to the one shot on the first ult, she's a lot better. So if I put Smokey in here, for instance, let's take a look at what this does. But what I was saying was, if you're just going for that 10% number, then sometimes putting Odie at the back can work better because then Odie gets his ult off on the boss instead of the ads, which allows that dot damage to tick over. Whereas this way, it allows the boss to summon the ads and then we get to use Sacia into those ads. And here you can see we've already lost the Odie, and on the next ult, we're 100% done. Like, there's nothing we're going to do about this one. So here comes the next ult. It's just around the corner. And what do we get? Just over 30% on the last one. And here it comes. The ult gauge is full. There it is. And there we go. We get wiped at 20%. So like I said, even though you do have Smokey, who's fantastic, in situations as you progress through different difficulties of this boss with your account, there will be situations in which dropping Smokey for that Coco is going to be a more viable option. Like I said, also sometimes test around with this. Test around with this artifact. Like I said, if you have the flame one, test around with that as well. There's no one size fits all for progressing through the game, and that's why you really want to do this. So what I want to show you here is Odie on this one. In this one, Odie is going to actually get his ult off on the boss before the boss summons the ads. So there you go, ult. Now the ads are getting summoned. There we go. I think Thorin's does actually hit some of them. So there we go. Boom. Now we do get the ads down a lot slower, but at least with that way, we do have the Odie ult getting off on the right target from the start. So that is that's the sort of trade-off that we have. So there we go. We just took all that damage back that we had mitigated with the what's her face? With the Coco, and now this run is not looking as promising as the previous run because now we wasted another what's his face? Odie ult. There we go. It's actually working out fairly similar nonetheless, but the other one was a bit better. So, and keep in mind, you do have RNG in the specific runs themselves. So there's a lot of things you can test out. Keep in mind, once you're down to 0 attacks, you can buy some extra ones with some gold, which if you're trying to push those a little bit higher, I definitely think it is worth it. But like I said, so this turns out for me on this one, I think my best formation at the moment is going to be this one here, where I have Thorin tanking, because if I try and, I could try and put Smokey in the front here as a tank, but I think Smokey is just going to get insta-clapped, and I think the same would happen with Kruger. But that, once again, that is stuff you can experiment with. So if you see my Smokey, you can see here, maybe we get enough healing. And if we don't have, if we have just short on the healing, so there you go. Yeah, that was good. That one really didn't work. So the next option I want to try is something like this, and this is what we can continually experiment with. We're dropping the Kruger, so we're dropping that debuffing. We still have some damage amplification, but maybe this will allow us to survive through the second ultimate and see how it goes. So once again, it's just a trial and error type thing. You do get 17 attacks per day to go ahead and play with to see how you go. So as you can see, Thorin's still surviving. We're gonna get the ads summoned here. We should get Coco's ult off just before it, please. Yes, okay, Coco ult coming in clutch before the ultimate, which is perfect, looking good. Okay, there we go. So now we got Smokey here to top us off. Now, if we can get through another ultimate, that'll be very clutch. Now, we need to get a bunch of healing in before the next ult, because that Coco mitigates the damage, but then you take it back delayed. So you're still gonna take that damage. And so here we go. Now we're ramping up. We're gonna get the ult. The boss ult, hopefully Coco can drop her ult before the boss. This is gonna be really tight timing. Okay, Coco does get it. So as you can see, we're at 37. Everyone's still managing to survive. We're going to get nuked in the next one, but as you can see, we're already up to that 43%, so we're already setting ourselves a new record. We just took that delayed damage from Coco. Coco getting another ult off, which means the timing's probably going to be out for Coco's next ult. But I mean, we're already hitting that 50%, which is fantastic. So now we've hit our best score, and there we go. We get one shot of that one, but we did manage to get the 51%. So that is probably about peak as far as I'm going to get with this account. So like I said, you're not going to run that type of team though if you're at a boss where you're pushing at 90 to 100%, because then you're looking for damage, and damage is what's going to get you across the line. So instead of running double healer, that's when you go with the more damage route and you bring more damage amplification or damage dealing. So that is the play around with this one. Like I said, it's an ever evolving thing on trying to get more damage depending on the stage that you're at, and you get a lot of attempts. So you can see I've still got 7 attempts left for the day, and obviously I've got 20 hours left. So I'm going to save them until the end of the day, because once again, at the end of the day, you've leveled up more. But I wanted to get this video out at the start of the day, and I will continue to do these for the other bosses. But like I said, there you go. Coco coming in super clutch with this one, doubling it up with the Smokey to get that sustain, and Thorin to do the tanking. Then we just have our 2 standard DPS, and away you go. Now, I can definitely try that team again, but I'll wait till the end of the day. But I could try that team again and maybe put Smokey getting the attack speed buff and see if that gives me a little bit more damage somehow. But I think now I've nailed in that for today, this is my best formation. I don't think I'm going to make a formation that's going to get me to 70, 80, 90% until I level up more. And that is probably the staple formation that I am going to use for this phase of Skyclops. Once Skyclops comes around again, maybe I'm pushing that 70, 80, 90 range, or maybe the end of today, if I level up enough, I'm pushing that range. And that's when maybe I drop the Smokey, or maybe I drop the Coco, depending on the situation. But once again, it is just testing, trial and error, and see how you go. But I think we covered just about enough range of teams. It's pretty similar on my other account where it's at the moment, but I'm in the more offensive state, so I'm using one healer, which is my Coco, because I don't have a Smokey. But essentially, don't forget, jump over to these websites. I will leave them linked in the description to go ahead and just get some of that end game info. You know, this sort of stuff, like if you have Rainier, like obviously you want to have him Mythic Plus, so this is very endgame stuff, and I will do more guides on this stuff as we progress, and I think the majority of the player base progresses to a more advanced state of these, getting more Mythic Pluses and stuff like that. But at the moment, I think this is the most valuable way to go through the boss. But once again, those websites, jump over, check them out. I'll leave them linked in the description, and as always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.